Hello, welcome to Art Like Everything Else, the podcast where I use art to talk about literally everything else. I'm your host, Mo, and today I wanted to talk about when is enough enough. To do that, I'm going to talk about two different art related things that I felt would be necessary for today's conversation. With that being said, let's hop right over into our first work of art so that we can have today's conversation. So, for our first work of art, I'm going to be talking about a short film I came across on YouTube called Simple Joys, a short film about appreciating the small things. The short film is by Pedro Camargo and it was released in 2025. And so the short film is literally less than a minute and it is just him sort of talking over some B-roll about why it's important to appreciate the small things. And honestly, appreciating the small things is not a new topic to the Art Like Everything Else podcast. I've absolutely discussed this or something similar to this topic in probably just about every single season we've had so far, because I do think it is something incredibly important. And so I'm using it in today's episode to kind of gauge about when is enough enough. So with that being said, I do think it is important to appreciate the small things because appreciating those things show us just what it is that we value and can remind us why we are enjoying and why we are doing what it is that we are doing, because we are finding joy and we are appreciating the small things even in times where feels incredibly difficult to even look on what could be considered a brighter side of things given all that's kind of going on in the world. And yeah, so like I think being able to understand when what is enough for you to be able to appreciate or to something to count as a simple joy or a simple pleasure. I think that is a very important gauge or mode of measurement for us to have in being able to determine when is joy enough, when is something enough for us to appreciate and have value in ourselves and in our lives, and to remember why it is that we are deciding to keep going. And with that being said, we're going to hop right over into our next segment so that we can keep this conversation rolling. Now, for this particular segment, I actually wanted to do something a bit unique. So, just about all previous episodes, especially this season, whenever I discuss something, our second portion is usually another physical or complete work of art. But today, I kind of wanted to touch on a particular trope that is very, very popular in a lot of the short dramas I found myself addicted to quite recently, actually. And so in these short dramas, especially in the trope of the rebirth, there's always the main character gets reborn after essentially being tortured to death or tortured to like they could quite literally no longer be alive, and to the end of their life, and made to feel worse and forced into being put down on their luck or having literally everything kind of taken or stripped away from them. And then they pass and they are reborn, and then they go about getting their revenge only in this after the rebirth has occurred. And so often I am watching these, and in my own head, I am thinking, when is enough enough for you? Because in your first life, why did you not consider that they are not treating me appropriately? They are not engaging me as a full-fledged person or engaging me in a way that isn't demoralizing me or making me feel bad about myself. And it never gets to the point of them seeking, like, hey, actually, I can say something about what's happening to me. Or I can actually be like, hey, actually, no, that's not okay. You're not allowed to treat me that way. You are blinded by whatever it is you feel self-righteous or righteous about, but that has nothing to do with me. Like, they never defend themselves in the face of the accusations, in the face of the bad treatment, and it always takes them passing away and coming back to be like, actually, I do not have to deal with this. Actually, I do not have to take whatever it is you throw at me and be grateful for you looking my way. I do not have to engage and be a part of these shenanigans. And so it's always them having to come up and decide when is enough enough. And unfortunately for a lot of these characters, it quite literally doesn't become enough until they've passed on and have essentially had to be reborn to come back and seek their own revenge. So, with that being said, let's hop over to our next segment so we can have today's conversation. So, for today's conversation, when is enough enough? Now, this is a question that I think is absolutely posed so often, but it is often posed in a singular direction. So I think it is normal that when somebody's like, when is enough enough, we're thinking in regards to getting treated badly. And that could be in with me referencing a lot of the scenarios that happen when it comes to the reborn trope, and how so often our characters, it's not enough until our characters have quite literally passed away and have had to come back to seek their own revenge. And then we see that happening, and we know about considering or thinking about when is enough enough, and trying to gauge how much disrespect is too much disrespect. But sometimes we don't consider the question, when is enough enough, in the opposite direction, which is why I started off with talking about the short film I found myself watching on YouTube about appreciating the small things. And it is so important that we embrace and we also ask ourselves these things on the opposite end of that spectrum, because in time periods like now, where there's quite literally still a genocide happening, there's food being recalled, people, it's getting almost impossible to be able to live a healthy, happy, relatively functional life without feeling like you're quite literally drowning in the economic state of things. And it's important that we consider how much or what is enough to keep us going. Like, how much joy is enough to keep us going? What is this cup of coffee that made exactly the way I like it? Is this enough joy to keep me going throughout my day? Is this enough to bring me a small moment or just chunk of happiness to keep me pushing, keep me trying to get through all that it is I am expected to get through on this day? Is going outside, seeing the lily pads in the pond, is that enough to get me to, is that enough joy to hold me over while I'm still having to exist in this world that feels like everything is simultaneously coming to an end but also never ending? Is that enough joy? Is listening to my favorite song, is that enough joy? When is enough enough? And it's important that we try to create those moments for ourselves, especially when trying to remember why it is we are doing what we are doing and why it is we are pursuing what we are pursuing. Just as it is important for us to also understand and also keep in mind about when is enough enough when it comes to our rights, when it comes to what is expected of us, when it comes to the role that the government or that the society expects us to play in what is happening around us. When is enough enough? Do we let them continue to believe we are but cogs in this machine that they are creating, and we are okay with being cogs in this machine that they have created and purposefully led to malfunction? When is enough enough in the opposite direction? Do we wait, like in all of these tropes, these reborn tropes? Do we wait until we've been pushed to the point of passing away and hoping that those after us can take up the mantle of rectifying what it is we may not actually get the chance to be reborn to do? But the reborn trope, it's a trope in a show for a reason. I don't think anyone's 100% sure on how that works. And so it's important that we not only think of and remember why we're doing what we're doing, or we find little ways to be happy and have some type of sense of joy for ourselves, finding these simple joys, like in our first little short film, where versus recognizing when enough is enough on the opposite end of the spectrum. When is it enough? Because so much has happened already. Quite literally, so much has happened already. And there have been so many people who I can say and recognize have absolutely taken upon the mantle and decided that enough is enough. And they're doing the education, and they're committing to helping those in their community, and they're committing to doing what they can to make their lives and make what it is that they have going for them as easy as possible. And I think more of us needs to be doing the same because yes, knowing when and knowing how to embrace and enjoy the little things of life to keep us going is important. But we also need to set a hard line in the sand for when enough is enough in the opposite direction. We cannot let ourselves be demoralized and talked down upon and told and made to feel less of ourselves by society who would quite literally cease to exist if we stopped doing what they expected us to do. It is important that we do what we can and not only make that line in the sand, also tell these people enough is enough, that we do want a habitable planet. We do want a world that is safe for us to live in and for our children who are existing now. We want a world that is safe for them to exist in. We want a world for where future children will feel safe to exist in. And we have to do that and take that in our hands and commit to this ourselves. So maybe, just maybe, deciding when enough is enough, whether that's for your joy or setting a hard line in the sand for how you're willing to be treated, too, can be in art, like everything else. Last, and certainly not least, is this week's awe moment. So for this week's awe moment, I actually want to talk about the game Life is Strange. And not just the game itself. I've recently been watching RDC play the game, and they played this a while back. It's not really recent. I'm just old and just not catching up. But like I'm watching them play through the first Life is Strange game, and it's been really fascinating and interesting because it's like more or less in regards to today's conversation. It's interesting seeing how people determine what is enough and what isn't enough, and you can see it in some of the just how the decision making goes on in the game with our people playing. With and it's really interesting because that's also kind of semi what like inspired today's conversation in today's episode, even though it is a very short episode. I'm so sorry, I've just been incredibly busy, but like determining like when is enough. And so like there's more than one occasion. Honestly, like what they call refer to the game is like their series of the game at least is Life is Ignorant, and it's just kind of like they do not tolerate a lot of things that would be considered incredibly disrespectful, unlike those folks in the reborn trope that I was talking about during the episode. Like they're like, nah, we're not letting that slide actually. And so it's just like that. It's like, when is enough? When do you get to decide that, hey, you actually don't get to talk to me or treat me like that, and I sit here and take it on the chin? Like, that's not okay. And we're not going to let that be okay. And I think it's really fascinating. And it's interesting. And it's fun to watch. It's been really entertaining to watch, especially when I feel like there's nothing else I feel like watching. So yeah, that's all I have for you for today's episode. Be sure to follow me on my social medias, the Lovely Infinite, TheLovelyInfinite. And then of course, you can follow Art Like Studios to be up to date on all that's going to be releasing. I'm going to let you know now, I am leaning away from continuing the mini podcast series that was also bi-weekly between the Art Like Everything Else the podcast series. And that's just because I am now releasing so much more on my art collective page. And if you are missing me or miss me in between the full episodes, definitely check me out over there. It's really all about embracing and just maintaining creativity and preserving what it is that makes art, and that a lot of that is just the humanity in it. And so right now I am sharing newer artists that I found, or artists that I find. I'm sharing information on how to learn to understand and engage art, information on folks who can help you understand and engage art, as well as resources on how you can get into particular art things if that is something you're interested in. And so definitely feel free to follow me over there. That is the CMP Collective, TheCMPCollective. the CMP Collective. And so, yeah, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being. I'll see you all next time. Bye.